Hey, my man, Reed Duthie. My special guest, Reed Duthie. Been with me since day one.
Yep.
I'm happy you came today. And don't forget, subscribe my page. Subscribe to the page. Hit that little like button. Share it with your friends. Let's get the word out. Let's just pass the news along. My man, so Reed Duthie. Let's go back to the beginning from how we first met. Do you recall how we first met?
Yeah, actually. Now, I can't remember what the event was, but it was at Adrenaline Gym.
Okay.
And it was either
that's
kickboxing
right.
smoker
Now I
or a
remember.
Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu smoker.
You were with Pecker.
Yes.
Alex Gasson.
Gasson had me doing live commentary for one of the tournaments they were doing. And I remember that it was probably about the midway point of the tournament. You came up and introduced yourself. And the guys had told me you were going to be there and that you were starting to run pro shows. And I think Pecker's idea was to get me broadcasting your shows.
That's right, because Pecker was he worked it with you.
Yeah, he was the color guy for me. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, you came.
I totally forgot. Now it's all coming back to me. I totally remember. I remember I was wearing a Blue Jays jersey that day.
Yes,
I totally remember.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
But I couldn't remember for the life of me. That's funny.
And I remember you came walking up, and it was like we'd been talking for 3 minutes. And, I like you. You want to call my show? I'm like, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I do.
that was cool.
And then from there, we've been running ever since.
Yeah, and you've only missed a couple. I mean, just tell everybody a little bit about yourself. I mean, your outside work of this is your play-by-play announcer for the Hamilton Bulldogs.
Yeah.
OHL team based out of Hamilton.
Yeah.
Huge. This is amazing. I remember when you first got the position. Walk us through a little bit of what you do on the outside of calling fights.
So outside of calling fights, hockey's always been a passion for me. I love the game, and I was 5 years old when I started essentially practicing play-by-play for hockey. And I got the opportunity when the Belleville Bulls moved to Hamilton for the 2015 season to become their TV play-by-play announcer. And then last season, an incredible opportunity. I mean, Steve Staios, who's the president and GM of the Bulldogs, who played for my favorite team, the Boston Bruins, in the mid-'90s, who I remember I grew up idolizing because he's from Hamilton.
Woody's going to be happy to hear that because he's a
right.
Bruins fan.
I know. Yeah, we're always back and forth on that. But Steve's the one that called me and asked me to come in and would I be interested in being their play-by-play voice for every game, so home and away, as well as being their communications coordinator. And you talk about a dream job. And between
now how does a guy just stumble into wanting to do play-by-play? Like, what was it? How did you find that job? How did it find you?
For me, it's always been a passion because I love sports, but hockey, I knew the way to do anything in hockey is to be able to make the pros and be an NHL player, right? I knew from a young age that wasn't going to happen for me. And I felt like I was better off facing it at that time rather than being 16, 17, 18 and still playing like the scouts are in the stands. Mm-hmm. And I decided, I decided at a young age, you know what? I can talk. And maybe I need to go into speaking. And what did it for me was there was an announcer for the Bruins, and my dad, I owe a lot of it to my dad.
Your dad's a great guy. He's always at the fights, too.
You know what? You have converted him into one of the biggest MMA fans. Huh. And it's all about PFC. He goes on the YouTube all the time for hilarious. PFC. Yeah. He calls me, and even fight shows that he's been at. He's like, so you remember when Tony hit him with that overhand right and dropped him? Like, Dad, how long have you been watching that for? I've been going back and forth on it for the last hour or so, just checking in on it. Okay, all right. He
got to see it first. Like he always got he'd sit beside you, see what his son was doing. So it was like he got to see the actual. When you see it from the crowd, it's a different perspective as opposed to being like
right there,
right in front of. When you're caged, you can hear the thuds, you can hear the heavy breathing, you can hear their feet like moving across the canvas.
He loves it.
Yeah, and he always has a good time. Always cheerful.
Oh yeah. He'll do, and you could have him, a former RCMP guy. Like he'll work security for you. He'll do anything for you.
Sure,
he loves PFC.
Yeah, I like him to enjoy the fights.
Oh
anyways,
yeah,
go on. You were saying.
And of course the two color announcers that he's seen me work with are Kara Rowe and Robin Black.
Yeah,
it doesn't get any better than that. I mean, those are
right.
of the elite. But a Bruins fan from the 1960s got me into being a Bruins fan, and they had an older announcer when I was a kid named Fred Cusick. He was the dean when it came to announcers. When you look at a play-by-play announcer, he is everything that a play-by-play announcer should be. And I realized as a kid watching the Bruins that I want to make people feel the way he made me feel as a kid watching those games. And I have been so lucky to be able to have those experiences. And then I went to college at Mohawk, and specifically because I wanted to be an announcer. So I went into TV and radio broadcasting, and I got the opportunity to do closed circuit games for the Hamilton Bulldogs when they were an AHL team. Volunteer. Setting up, tearing down my own booth. I'd arrive at 2 p.m. I'd be there till 2 a.m, and I loved every second of it. You would have thought I was,
I love that.
You would have thought I was on Red Bull
No,
for
that's what
the
you're
entire
supposed to
time.
do.
Yeah.
That's the key to success, I think.
And one of the guys, and again, it's just, you make connections, right? One of the guys who was going to Mohawk at the time was also working for Cable 14, which is our local station. So a lot like the Rogers station here that airs the London Knights. Cable 14 is that in Hamilton. And for me, the guy that was doing it, his name was Dave, and he sent a demo reel of me into the local station in Hamilton, Cable 14. Within a week, I got a call from a producer named Rob Newhouser, who asked me if I wanted to do high school soccer. I would have taken anything. And he said, high school soccer, you ever called soccer before? No. You want to give it a try? Sure.
Really?
He could have told me he could have told me cricket, anything. I would have done anything. I show up to do it. It's at a field in Ancaster. I'm just up in essentially a lift, like a lift truck.
Yeah.
There's no booth. There's a headset and a microphone box. There's no booth. We're out in the sun. We're out there for 6 hours. I got burned to a crisp. I looked like a lobster by the time it was done. And after that, he said, I'm going to call you back for everything. And then I went through junior hockey, the Allen Cup League, Junior B, worked my way essentially from the lowest league you could call all the way back up to the AHL and the OHL.
Yeah.
And it's been a crazy, crazy ride to get there.
So how the hell did you get into MMA?
I have loved the sport. So I did amateur wrestling in middle school and high school, and I loved the sport. The first guy that captured me, 1999, the Rings King of Kings tournament, Dan Henderson. Just loved the sport right from that moment on. And I was a Pride guy. So in the Pride UFC era, I was always the Pride guys, which didn't work out so well for me when all my buddies were UFC fans. And
you were the Pride guy.
Forrest Griffin knocks out Shogun, and I got some razzing that night. But Pride guy, watched all the shows, and I wanted to call MMA. I wanted to call it. And when the sport went legal in Ontario, Jeff Joslin, Hamilton guy, my dad played hockey with his dad, so we'd known each other for years. Slammer and the Hammer was the first show.
Okay, so you were involved in that. That's cool.
All the way back. I still have the disc of it. And I called Slammer and the Hammer, which Francis Carmont and Jason Day was the main event. And that was right before Carmont went to the UFC.
Oh, shit. Who else was on that card?
Jesse Ronson.
Yeah. Who'd he fight?
Brandon Shannon, the Boston
Strangler. He's got
Strangler.
a grazer memory. Yeah? He remembers all. That's why I knew you'd be good to kid on. Because he remembers every. You surprise me sometimes when you talk about fighters.
Lyndon Whitlock was on that show.
Yeah.
It was a great card. And then from there, that's where I really got to meet Crew Alin and Josh Hill, Lyndon Whitlock, Garnet Ace. They were the ones that brought me into Global Warriors.
Okay.
So I did Global Warriors in, I think it was August. No, it was August of that same summer. And that's when Adrian Woolley fought Bo Harris. Josh Hill fought Kiko Lopez, the fight that Josh beat a Dan Henderson guy and kind of started the upward ascension for him. I remember Lyndon Whitlock broke Jason McKay's leg with a low leg kick.
Really?
And just blew out his knee. And that was one of those fights where you looked at Lyndon and went, whoa, this guy's tough. And it just kept rolling from there. I mean, that was the first time I saw Ryan Dixon fight. And then kept on just kind of going. And I worked one show in Belleville for Discipline MMA in a really weird card that was supposed to have Rich Clementi and Carol Parisian was supposed to be there. We got to the show, and you've been through this weigh-ins back in the previous administration for the Athletic Commission. Yeah. 10 fights on the card. We get to the end of weigh-ins, we had 5.
Yeah, that's how it goes. You got to plan for it. You got to budget. You book 15.
We went all the way to Belleville for 5 fights. So,
what 5 fights? Do you remember them?
Jason Powell fought a Brazilian kid. I don't remember the Brazilian kid's name. I never saw him again. Never saw the Brazilian kid again. Jeff Chan beat a local guy from the Hamilton area. And it was like a breakout performance for Chan. I've seen now he's actually back and doing some other stuff. Peter Nolan, Misha Serkinov's teammate, fought Caleb Grummett on that show. That was probably the highlight of the night. That one was a great fight. But the fights themselves were great. It was a 5-fight show. And like the rest of Ontario MMA was there. Like Josh Hill was there, Lyndon Whitlock was there, Scott McCovey was there, the guys from Toronto, the guys from London, everybody was there. But that was at the time of the Score Fighting series. So those guys all had deals. So it's not like you could just, fights got canceled while these guys are in town, try to get somebody in. You couldn't. So it was kind of a strange time with all that. And then when the Score went under, that's when everything went dark, and that's when you and I hooked up. And I had been on the shelf for MMA since that show in Belleville. That's why I was doing smokers and just about anything I could find. A lot of it with the adrenaline guys. Yeah. Because from all that
because of Pecker.
Yeah, Pecker and Ronson. And for some reason, Clements, Hordeski, Hominick, Stout, they all took a liking to me. I got really lucky. I don't know why they took a liking to me, but they did.
You always say good things.
Yeah.
That's right. You always find the good in everybody. I've always noticed.
And I try. And I mean, I've had the incredible pleasure to, I think, commentate fights with just about every one of those guys. So an incredible list of guys. And that's when you and I hooked up. And since then, I've been PFC.
Yeah, that's amazing. You've worked with Kara Rowe, Robin Black. Who else have you called with?
Chris Hordeski.
Mark
Hominick.
Yep.
Sam Stout.
Yep.
Mark Bocek way back in one of the early shows.
Yeah. Who's your favorite to work with?
Oh, geez.
Who do you vibe with the best? Who do you just calling you out, put you on the spot?
Oh, that is so tough. That is so tough. Kara and Robin, I think, are right at the top of my list. Kara, I'd never worked with until you asked me if I wanted to call a fight with her. Absolutely. I mean,
yeah, she's good too.
And who doesn't know who Kara Rowe is in combat sports? She was unbelievable to work with. And then Robin Black, I worked with him the first time in 2011. He and I, for some reason, have always had great chemistry.
I talked to him tonight, and he actually said to say hello.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, he goes, tell him I love him. Tell him hello. Because he's coming in on Saturday.
Oh, is he?
Yeah. So I said to him tonight, I go, hey, I got Reed coming in tonight. Like, if you want to, we can crack it off tonight if you want to do that. And he was like, oh, I'm in Toronto. But he goes, tell him I love him. Tell him hi.
One of these days, we'll put that together.
Yeah.
We'll put that
But that'd be
together.
cool just to kind of just sit to have you both on and shoot the shit about all these fights.
He's just an awesome guy.
Yeah, you guys mesh really well together.
And it was like that so when I got told the first time I was working with Robin Black, he'd already been on the Fight Network. And that was a big deal to me because I was 3 years into calling professionally. And I get told, oh, you're working with Robin Black. Okay. Robin called me from the first moment we talked. I knew it was going to be perfect. And it was. It was dead on. It was great. He's just been amazing to me in a lot of ways, too, because from that first time, he honestly could have gone to the promoter of that first show we called together and said, nah, this kid's only been in this a couple of years. I want to work with somebody that's been longer tenured. But that first phone call, he was so excited to work with me. And that blew me away. Like, this is a guy who I look up to, who I have a ton of respect for. I mean, you look at, he went from being the singer of a rock band, successful in music, to coming over and not just calling MMA, not just talking about MMA, not just analyzing MMA. He stepped in the cage and fought. And that was something that I thought was so cool, that I really looked up to. And he's telling me, oh, I'm excited to work with you. This is going to be great.
He's a true professional.
Absolutely, 100%. And ever since then, anytime he and I have gotten the chance to work together, it's been great. I mean, that show in Toronto at Rebel Night.
Yeah, let's recap this show. Because, we hit a pandemic. So we had a lot of momentum. Everything was going great. The shows were everything was, that crystal ball just kept getting polished.
Yep.
The product was getting better. It was, the fighters were starting to get more of a following. So when you have all this momentum and it gets stripped away right away because now we're all on the shelf.
Yep.
So it's frustrating. It's disheartening. I struggled with probably the first 2 months of the quarantine of trying not to break down because I was like, I eat, sleep, and breathe fighting, like the promotions and like the whole everything around it. I was so consumed with it. It was from the morning right till the night, morning till night, 7 days a week, 28 hours a day. Like it was just, that's all we ever did. That's why when we had the podcast the other day with Woody and Alex, it was nice because I hadn't really sat with those guys and talked that long, but I always did on a regular basis anyways. So if we had fights, I talked to those guys every day like that, not on a podcast, but on the phone, on conference calls. We're always going. We're always, the machine has always got to move. But now we're like stuck.
And one great thing about Woody and Alex is that in working with them, Alex has really taken like this liking to me that I can send him ideas for fights. Mm-hmm. And none of them may happen, but he's going to take that idea and go, that guy's pretty good. Why don't we match him up over here with this guy? And then, after a while, I start to see, hey, like 3 or 4 guys I asked him about wind up on a card. Like, that's pretty cool. And of course, Woody, that's my buddy, Bruins fan. That's my guy.
Yeah.
So
do you have? So let's go back to Toronto. So do you have a fight that stood out in your head on that one?
All of them. The whole show was amazing. Tony Laramie beating a guy who had 4 times his experience in Claudio Ledesma.
Pretty crazy.
And the way he did it.
Did you used to watch Tony through the amateur scene too?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. He's a beast.
He was dominant as an amateur. I remember him knocking out somebody. I think he was 8 inches taller than him with an overhand right.
Ryan Donnelly.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right.
That was at the Ace Fighting Championships in Toronto, in Georgetown.
Yep.
And I remember Ivan Whitaker is the promoter of that.
Yes.
And he said to me, we were joking about it. He goes, my boy's gonna. Ryan was his champion. He's like, right, he's gonna kill your Tony. I go, do you want to bet? We should bet. And that's nothing to take, like not to take anything away from Ryan.
No, because he beat a couple of really good guys leading up to that.
He was one of those real crafty fighters that would catch you in the weirdest things. Tony's just a different animal.
He's a buzzsaw.
Pretty much. That's a better way to put it, right? So I think, but so many people say no. Nobody wanted to fight him. Ryan never. He was like, no problem. Sure, let's do it.
Let's go.
But anyways, back to Ivan. He's like, he's not going to beat Ryan. He had no idea. I'm like, I'll bet you $500. I'll bet you $500. Tony will beat him. And he goes, I'll take that bet. We never, even though Tony won the fight, I never collected because I was like Tony was kind of meant for superstardom.
Oh yeah.
Like he's young. His TJ's the same thing.
Yes.
You have these like flock of guys, and it's not just TJ and it's not just Tony. There's so many guys coming up that are future superstars. They just don't know it yet, and they just haven't had the chance to perform. That's why, again, the coronavirus kind of fucked everything.
Because we were looking at late May, and I was
May 30th was planned as the next one, and then
I was charged up, man. I was ready to go for that, and of course, I got the double whammy at the same time because the OHL season, a week after we were in Toronto doing the show at Rebel, the OHL season gets postponed and eventually canceled.
We just squeaked by. Like, we were lucky. Another week later, we would have been screwed.
It would have been off.
What's happening with the OHL stuff?
So the latest that I've been told is that we're expecting to go back as normal, maybe a few weeks later. But
what's the projected date?
End of September, early October.
Holy shit, eh?
So we'll see if they can get that. I mean, I don't think anybody would blame them if they put it back a few weeks, a month. But they're saying we're going to get a full season in, that we're going to play. We're going to have the playoffs next year. We're going to have the Memorial Cup next year, which is great for me because it gives me a directive right away. All right, I know what I'm doing. It's a regular season. Let's go. And the Bulldogs, selfishly, the Bulldogs are going to be really good. Mm-hmm. So
do you fall when you call a hockey game? Are you above them?
Yeah.
So all you see is the numbers on their backs?
Yeah. Numbers on their backs.
So you got to memorize that. You have to know everybody's number. Yeah. Is that the first step?
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's day one. And then with other teams, it's get a hold of their roster as quickly as you can. Get a hold of a guide on how to pronounce their names and memorize it.
So you got to do homework.
Oh, a ton of it.
Yeah, because I when I hear you call a game, I'm like, how the hell does this get? Like, how do you know all this? How do you See, I'm not a big hockey guy. I don't watch hockey, so maybe that's when I look at it, I go, holy shit, that's like, it's crazy that you can go, oh yeah, number 45, fucking Bob Schmo, up on the right side with the puck, it passes over the thing, and you're like, oh, how do you know all this, like, just like that?
Practice. Just it's the amount of hours of practice. Because when you start, you're going to be doing the way I've always done it is I have both rosters, and they're taped down to the desk in front of me. And when you start, you are going to be looking down and looking up. And you got to learn to be really quick to sneak a peek at what number is who to be able to catch it on the fly.
Okay.
As you get better and as you get more experience, it starts coming naturally.
So you know then now you start to know, okay, 18 is
and now with the Bulldogs, because I do 68 games, by game 3, I know all, maybe not even by game 3 at this point, I know all their numbers pretty much like that. With teams that we see often, so in our division, Ottawa, Kingston, Oshawa, teams like that, I'll pick up their numbers probably by the second time we play them, and I don't have to look down at a sheet. The Western Conference teams are the tough ones. So when we play Sarnia, Windsor, London, we only see them twice a year. So at the beginning of the season, if I memorize their roster and they make a trade, well, thanks, guys. Now I got to redo all my homework. But it comes quick with experience. But that's one thing that I always tell people that ask me for advice is don't get frustrated if you don't pick up the memorization right away. It's like everything. It takes time. You're not going to be good at it overnight. You're not going to get good at anything overnight. You have to practice. The hours that you put in are worth it because you're going to be better for it. And call anything because it's the same process. If it's a sport where somebody's got a number on their back, then you've got to do the same thing. You've got to memorize it and be able to say it confidently on the air. Take any opportunity. Call anything. I have, including roller derby.
That's amazing.
Call anything.
So when we have a fight that comes up, what do you do? I know oftentimes you ask me for the fight card, and I'll send it.
Yeah.
I always send you the fight card as it's happening, and I say, okay, don't tell anybody because it's not approved yet, or we're trying to get everything through the gate. So do you go and research the fighters as you're doing all this? Because you seem like you know everybody. When I'm like, how the fuck does this guy know this about this guy? Like, so you actually go in and do your homework.
Yes, 100%. When I ask you for the card and you send even if it's a preliminary one over, I've already got a whole set of notes done for all those fighters.
So you get mad? Do you get mad when the fight card changes all the time?
No, because probably the first couple of shows I did, changing the fight cards, like, oh God, now I just expect it. So I know if you send me a list of 15 fights, we're gonna have 10, 12. But do your homework for everybody, because the other thing that you see, especially in MMA, is you got 2 fights that are in lightweight that get canceled because one guy doesn't have his medicals and one guy, couldn't make weight or what. So then those 2 guys will get matched up together. The 2 guys that did make weight and have their medicals done. Well, then if you already have that, fighter A and fighter B, and you've got their histories, well, boom, you're already ahead of the game. You just kind of cut and paste into the same fight. So that makes life easier for me. So I just kind of roll with it when fights change. But the fact that you'll send all that stuff to me makes my job way easier. Yeah,
because you've always been a true professional that way. You're asking for the fight card, wanting to know who's who he trains with, just getting the dirt. And I notice Robin does the same thing.
Yep.
And it's usually over a coffee or a beer the day before the fights. I'll sit with you guys. Like, we'll just say, hey, how's it going? We'll meet at the hotel. We'll shoot the shit, say blah, blah, blah. And then we talk about the fight card. And it's this. And I can tell that you guys are like little computers. You're both looking, okay, that guy. Oh, that's right. Okay, good. And because I often hear it come out when you're commentating.
Yep.
Oh, we were just talking about that, at the restaurant the day before. So it's cool that you do that.
One of the things that's invaluable is having a promoter like yourself, having matchmakers like Alex and Woody that are going to sit with you and talk to you about the fighters. So they're going to tell us everything they know. And because they do that, now we have our own research of what their record is. Robin's probably seen them live. I've either seen them live or on video. And we can put all that together, but having firsthand knowledge of guys who are booking the fights and promoting the fights. So if you're really excited about a fight and you're giving us great quotes about...
And I often am.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you're giving us great quotes about 2 guys that you really want to see get in the cage. That's electric for us. That's stuff that we feed off of, because then we can bring that. Not only are Robin and I excited, the matchmakers are excited, the promoter's excited, and if all those people are excited, then you would have to not have a pulse to not be excited. That's where the fans can get right into it. And Robin, I think, again, to go back to Robin, he looks at it the same way I do. We're not the stars, we're the narrators. If you can excite the narrators, then the narrators can excite the fans. So it's all that cycle of it together. And it's the same thing no matter what sport you're calling, but especially in MMA, because it's one-on-one and they're squared off with one another. And if everybody's excited to see this guy, Zachary Powell and Adam De Freitas, who wasn't excited to see that fight happen?
Yeah.
Not knowing that we were going to see Zachary Powell turn himself into a star in that fight.
He's coming on. Yeah, he's coming on. So we had the podcast the other day. He reached out to Dara, and so yeah, he's making the drive. So we're actually going to sit with him the next couple of weeks. So again, and De Freitas is coming on as well. So we'll get to catch up with all these guys because we never really get to catch up with guys after the fights.
Yeah,
this whole thing really. Yeah, I think it's the whole world stopped.
It did.
It feels like a book right now. It feels like a movie. We're watching a movie and the whole world is to shit. But that shit's only temporary. It will come back. It's just we're on a little hiatus right now. So if anything, just everyone stay active, polish your craft, get better.
Well, because that's the thing. Because we don't know when it could open up sooner than we think. I mean, the numbers in Ontario have been going in the right direction for a while now.
Yeah, I'm
sure if the commission called you tomorrow and said, "Hey, by August, we're looking to put a fight show on," you're probably going, all right.
I'm in.
Let's go.
Yeah.
So,
I'm not confident on it just yet. I don't think August.
No. I'm just using that as an example.
But Powell and De Freitas. De Freitas is one of those guys who, he tore through the amateur scene.
Blew through it.
Powell was kind of the same thing in the Montreal area. And then, so he was kind of like a little sleeper. And Adam De Freitas, because he was so dangerous and he's a dangerous fighter. Not a lot of people wanted to fight him, so it was like, and it's hard at the level when they're just debuting, turning pro. It's you want them to fight local as much as possible. The problem is if you beat everybody up local, nobody wants to fight you. If you're beating everybody up in training, nobody's going to want to fight you. But Powell, no problem. He was like. No problem. So it was stylistically, it was such a great matchup. So I'm curious to see how things turn out for both of these guys. I like to see Adam go right back at it again. I want to see what's next for Powell. Is he, I'd like to see him fight Condi.
That would be an
I think a lot of
fight.
us are I think that was the plan. The plan was to do Condi Powell maybe for a belt. Who knows? There's talks. But again, we're kind of been sideswept, right?
Absolutely. And that's a fight, too, so Powell and Condi would be tremendous. I don't know who to think De Freitas should go up against next, but I'm with you. I want to see him get back in and get back on the winning, because he's going to.
Right
he's
away. Oh, yeah, sure he will. Sure he will.
I want to see 3 years from now, De Freitas and Powell come back again and do it again. Both improve their craft.
I agree.
Both, change a bit. And now I think De Freitas will have a stronger game plan against Powell next time around, because he said it himself. He relied too much on playing his rubber guard. And his corner, I remember hearing Rory McDonald and Lyndon Whitlock screaming at him to ease up on that. Don't do that as much. But that's what made him so successful as an amateur. That's what's made him successful as a pro. You're going to go into that when you're in a panic situation. Not saying he was necessarily panicking, but in a tough situation against Zachary Powell, you're going to rely on what you know and what you do well. Powell knew that and was able to capitalize on that. So you give Adam another chance to reset, get some wins under his belt, get Powell going again. Condi could be a stick in that mud for Powell. That's a whole nother story. But 3 years from now, you put those 2 years from now, you put those two back in the cage against each other. I think you'd have a different fight, and it would still be every bit as entertaining.
Yeah. Not to make excuses for Adam, but you're talking about a guy who's got a full-time job, working crazy hours, new family, against a guy who's eats, sleeps, trains. Again, not taking anything either away from any of the guys, but I mean that stuff sometimes goes against you when you're living a life, because the fighter lifestyle is tough to get by on as it is.
And that's not taking anything away from anybody. That's just reality.
Yeah, it's so true.
I mean, Adam De Freitas has a mindset. This is a guy who breeds snakes.
Yeah.
You gotta have a mindset.
When he comes on, because and that's why I've been fucking harassing him, and I'm telling Adam, you have to come on. He's in on the 18th. Anyways, we're gonna talk about all that stuff with him because that's what I mean. He's kind of he's almost like a comic book character.
Yes.
That's what he reminds me of, like the real Punisher. Like he goes home, he breathes. If you didn't know he had a family, you would think he lived in a loft apartment up above a factory, and he polished his guns before he went to bed, and you know what I mean. He fed the homeless guy in the hallway, and he kicked the shit out of thugs in the alleyway. You know what I mean? That's kind of how I envision him. So
the first conversation I ever had with Adam, this is a guy who I've seen fight, who I've seen destroy people. He's like this nice, soft-spoken guy, and we talked about the conservation of reptiles. That's the first conversation I had with this guy who's tearing through people, and he's like, yeah, man, I just want to be a part of this and, help conserve and make sure that... It's like, this is a really cool dude with so many layers to himself. He's so much more than just mixed martial arts. And all these guys are when you dig in a little bit on them. But he's so much more than just what you see in the cage that your show with him is going to be amazing. Because there's so much he'll be able to talk about.
Yeah, he's definitely an interesting kid. Because I don't even know him that well either.
He's just a nice guy. I mean, Rory and Lyndon, I've known them for a long time. And they told me what a great guy he is in addition to be a great fighter. And they're totally right.
Who are your favorite local fighters?
Favorite...
Josh Hill.
Well, yeah.
You're Josh. You've always been a huge. You're always Josh Hill on the card.
Yeah, well, no, exactly. Yeah, because he's been my buddy for a while, and I know him. I know his brother Jake. I think I've probably played hockey against his brother at some point, but I'm not sure when or where. But we're all around the same age, so it's probably come across at some point in the men's leagues out in the Hamilton area. But Josh, obviously, number one, he's been a good friend and a great fighter. Lyndon Whitlock, I know Lyndon's pretty much retired at this point in his training. Always enjoyed calling him in the cage. He's so much fun. Ryan Dixon's another guy who stepped away but was at the card in Toronto.
I even said to him at the show, I'm like, do it again, bro. Like, I don't know, take another run at it.
I think he's just turned 30. I mean, he's got lots of time
Sure, he totally
left.
can do it.
So those three guys, for sure. I mean, anybody who comes out of Adrenaline, they're always exciting to watch.
Matty Havorka. Man.
Oh, yeah. There's a guy who, I mean, you could hit him with a brick. He'll just smile.
You've called a lot of his amateur fights with me too,
yeah.
right?
You can't put that guy away. Bring your lunch pail if you're fighting Matty Havorka, because it's going to be 3 rounds or 5 rounds if it's a title, because he's just going to battle. He's just going to... The Laramie brothers, I mean, I can't forget them. I've had so much fun calling their fights, and, selfishly, I want to call more of TJ's, but, for him, I hope he makes, wins his fight in the Contender Series and gets a big, fat contract.
He will.
I think so, too.
He will. Yeah, he's super focused.
He's a destroyer.
This kid is, I think, coming back off of the loss after the TKO and then going on a tear with me, he's a whole new animal.
Oh, yeah.
I think I think you have to lose to gain.
Oh, for sure.
And when you're unstoppable all the time, and then all of a sudden you hit a roadblock, do you know what I mean? But he's had some ones that went against him that, shouldn't have went that way. But ultimately, he's a different guy now. He's very mature for his age.
The run in TKO for both Tony and TJ, it may not have been the most successful, and for one reason or another, I mean, there was some weird judging, but the losses for Tony specifically turned him into a different animal. He's amazing at this point.
See, that's why Jordan Graham, when he fought Jordan Graham in TKO and he broke his hip, and when he was talked on the podcast, he was saying all the injuries and how long he was out for, and he contemplating quitting, and there was and people were telling him, "No, you shouldn't do it anymore," but that actually gave him that fire. It's one of those guys when you tell him you can't do something, he's going to prove you wrong. He's going to go out and he's going to take a wild run at it, and as he should, right? You good?
Yep, no, I'm good.
Good.
I'm
awesome. Good. Who else?
The Laramies. One guy who not a lot of people know because he hasn't had a ton of fights yet, Shane Monahan.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody loves Conor McGregor. Everybody loves a battling Irishman. Shane Monahan's going to be our battling Irishman.
Yeah, he's been plagued with some injuries, which is really shitty because you want to see him go because he's...
And it feels like every time we get close to a fight and then something pops up, eventually that'll turn the other way for him. It's just... bad luck doesn't last forever.
No.
And he'll get that turned around.
Yeah, and he's with all the great. He's with all the right guys.
Oh yeah, well, okay. Anybody that Reno Belcastro gets his hands on is going to be well trained, smart, talented, and have a great base to be able to take off to that next level. And I think it's so cool that because of the relationship we have with the MTC gym, that we're going to be able to be the launching point for a lot of these guys. Because you're seeing it with TJ, with Tony. Shane's going to be in that line. And I think a lot of people forget Kyle Prepolek had a pretty good run in PFC. I mean, he had a great fight with Alex Ricci.
Yeah, and he went on a tear in BTC, and then he got the UFC shot again. Young, still like fiery. These guys, Ontario has always been a cesspool for fucking tough guys.
Yes,
you just wish you could just get them out and fight each other.
Yeah, you know the only problem I see with Prepolek at this point is that he gets released by the UFC. I know we're dying to get him on a card. He could run through a couple of opponents, have a belt around his waist, and then Bellator's going to be on the phone. Hey, you want to come in for a lightweight tournament, or you want to come in as a replacement? So as great as it is that, you know, we're going to probably be able to see him at some point fighting under the PFC banner again, I don't think he's going to be here long.
No, not at all. And that's the thing is,
It's a positive and a negative all at the same time, because you lose a great fighter, but you get to be that launching point for a great fighter.
The thing is with the UFC is they have such a gigantic roster. So, I mean, you have to really, you got to really put it on. And it's not just so much putting it on in the cage, it's putting it on outside. It's on your social media, on presence alone. The business itself is not just fighting. You can be a top talented fighter and not be able to go to the next level because they don't know how to talk. You put a microphone in front of them, and they're blank. And then that's why it looks funny when you see the guys that are trying to give themselves a persona. When the persona would not necessarily work, but you just kind of got to not be shy, man. I mean, most of these guys, you're a fighter for a reason. You're wired different than everybody else. So it's too bad it's not just strictly based off of skill. But again, it's the world's fastest growing sport. The sport, it keeps changing. Fighters are evolving. Fighters are getting better. I'm seeing guys that, 5 years ago are fighting guys that are younger that have just started out late in the game, and they're getting crushed by them because they're just that much better.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look at how long was Eric Montgomery off before he made his return in Windsor back in June, and how good was he stepping back in?
And another one who can take another run at it. But again, work, life. Okay, gets in the sport's definitely a grind for everybody, for all of us, because we're not quitting our full-time jobs to do this.
That's the thing, and that's where MMA in Ontario can be tough, because until a network steps in to pick up, so use PFC as an example, until a television network comes to you and wants to put a whole bunch of money behind running PFC, which I really think they should. Because when you look at the UFC and Bellator, they've got to get their next wave of talent from somewhere. And I know there's some in the States that are pretty good promotions as well. LFA, or is it under LFA now? Because they had the merger with the RFA. LFC merged with RFA.
Yeah,
right?
It's LFA now.
LFA now. So there's Titan. There's a bunch of them in the States, but there's none here. There's none here that are at that level, because those promotions have been on the Access TV and all those sort of bigger channels. We need a television network to come up to you and essentially say, okay, we want to put PFC on. We're going to put money behind it so that you can really help get these guys to a point where even if they're still working a full-time job, they could maybe afford to take time to be able to do a full training camp, or at least help them get to a point where they can be their best when they step into the cage. Not that they aren't now, but I mean, you think if you put a little bit of money from a station that's going to broadcast this to the world into PFC, man, what it could become like that. Because the talent's already here. The talent is already here. It's just being able to continue to cultivate it.
Yeah. That's why I hope the gyms get through this mess.
It looks like
everything's opening back up, and I've only heard of a few that closed up. But the majority seem to be going back at it. It's just this slow process. We have to be patient.
Yeah.
And hope we don't lose guys to work and jobs and
Yeah.
life. You know, I mean, it is what it is. But it's, you know, there's so many guys that are young enough. You want to take a hard kick at the cat now. You know,
The patience is the hardest part because, I mean, we've been in this situation since, well, I have personally since the middle of March when the OHL shut down and pretty much any spectator sports in the province shut down. So I've been sitting on the sideline sort of waiting for something to come up and, you know, something positive that we can run an event in Ontario. And I know it's still a little ways off. And like you said, the first couple months were really rough because I lost the playoffs, the end of the season of the playoffs, and then May 30th. And then we were probably going to run another one summer, fall. So, I mean, I had all this stuff going that I was really looking forward to sinking my teeth into. And in the blink of an eye, gone from something that nobody had any control over. It just, that's the hard part to deal with because I think it's natural that you want to blame somebody, anybody. You can't blame anybody. I mean, it's a pandemic that's run worldwide. Who do you blame? Yeah. Like, there's no point blaming anybody now. Now it's about, let's get everybody through this. Let's get to the other side. Let's get everything back. And just be happy that we can get there, and that, you know, the world's not just going to end.
Yeah, it's definitely a mind fuck because like I said, we had a calendar year planned. You know, now I'm thinking instead of event per event, let's think on 5-year terms now. Let's just build something gigantic. Swept.
It's the second time that PFC has gotten right to the cusp of being that big Canadian promotion that's going to take the world on and just break out. And the first time it was that the commission kind of got a little sour about MMA, and, you know, pretty much no shows ran there for a couple of years.
Well, it was harder back then.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't, you know, you couldn't, to take that gamble and that risk to put on a show that could be literally switched off a week before if he just didn't like the way things were going, he would say the event's canceled, and you lose everything.
Went through that with a show in Brantford.
We've seen that, you know, and it's a tragedy, man, when you see that, because Garnet Ace, you know, that's who it happened to.
Yep.
You know, and it was a tragedy because you're like, fuck, man, here's a guy who loved the sport, he was trying to put it on for everybody, and just like that, the commissioner came in and just went. And that's the scary part. The commissioner has the power to just go, no, I don't like the way this is going. Pull the plug.
And the nice thing that was starting to happen is you and Garnet were starting to kind of go to each other's shows. And I mean,
I've always been a big supporter.
Yeah.
And that's the beautiful thing about the MMA community regionally is everybody supports each other.
There was a ton of stuff going on there that it felt like that was 2015, wasn't it? And that felt like, whoa, there's something big going on in the province of Ontario. We're going to start rolling shows out. And then all that got swept. And then thank God it's come back. And you had the idea back then of amateur. Let's go amateur and develop the next group of guys who are now seeing
that was the whole push on the amateur thing.
Yeah.
Because we thought, okay, listen, eventually the pros they're all going to go elsewhere. They're going to get signed. They're going to retire. But then what? If you don't have a flock, you can't run with the same guys for 10 years.
Yeah.
Like eventually they get older. They only have a shelf life for so long. So you always have to get the upcoming talent. The amateur thing was perfect because I thought the issues that you usually have with some fighters, not all, but some of them, they don't do their medicals properly. They don't run their social media properly. They kind of don't really understand how it all works. But as a promotion, if we come in with the amateur stuff, if you can groom them to say, okay, here's what you got to get for your medical stuff, but it's not as strict as it was with the pro. We modeled everything off the pro.
Yep.
But the thing is, like, if you had your blood work in 30 days, it expired in 30 days, and then your MRI came back 31 days, and it was one day late with the blood, the old commission would send it all back.
Yeah.
Which you'd have to start the process all over again. So it was a lot harder to get guys licensed. Getting licensed is always the biggest problem, and that's why Faisal has always been, because he helps. He helps a lot of these fighters out go through that whole process. If we didn't have Faisal, a lot of these guys would have a hard time getting those medicals and tests done. Are they too rigorous? Maybe. Are they worth it? For sure.
Yes.
You know, I mean, I don't think getting an MRI every time you fight is good for you either. I think they should change things, but
Yeah,
Luke understands now.
probably
He's made
should
things
be.
now. It's every 2 years, every 3. Like
Yeah.
they do understand that. But before, Hayashi would hold it to the no. You got to get another MRI. Like, you just had one.
Yeah, that's
a month
that can
ago.
be a
Like,
little,
you-
that
like
can
how-
be a little dangerous.
Yeah, you're cooking these guys' brains. Man.
Yeah.
Like, how is that helping them?
Yeah, it's not.
But it's not. It wasn't to help them. It was a way out.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to do this because
Well,
it's
if
going
you
to
don't
be
have
harder
this,
for them.
if you don't have this, if you don't have this, we can, yeah. And a lot of people, one of the funny discussions that I've heard over time is who is the MVP of Ontario MMA? Who's the guy? And, your name comes up, Robin Black's name comes up. There's a lot. The guy Faisal.
Yeah,
Faisal's the guy.
Faisal is 100% the MVP.
If you don't have Faisal on your side,
Yeah.
forget it. That's the guy. It's funny because his nickname, but he is the kingmaker when it comes to MMA.
Yeah.
He is our guy, and I mean, you couldn't ask for a nicer guy.
Yeah, he definitely is. He's lost a bunch of weight. Did you watch the podcast when we did the Corona? Yeah, like he's just an all around a great guy, all around for the sport. I've seen him hold grudges and lose them right away. Like, do you know what I mean? Like he doesn't hold back.
Yeah.
If you fuck something up, he tells you. He don't give a shit. He tells you. And not a lot of people know this, but like if you watch an interview, if you were to see a thread, a message. Sorry. So we have these messages. Sometimes you have a fighter and Faisal, myself, or Woody, Faisal, myself, Alex. Like we're all in like little group messages.
Yep, of course.
Somebody messes up, it's their banishment. Oh fuck! He makes you feel so bad about it, but rightfully so. You just wasted his time. You wasted his resources. So he doesn't mess around. So every time we always say Faisal's going to help somebody out, we always say, hey, do whatever he says, no matter what. If he says jump, you say how high.
Yes.
You do whatever he says. If he wants you to circle the parking lot backwards on a horseback, do it on a horseback.
Yeah.
Just do it because he's helping you.
Oh,
So
he's one of those guys. If he came up to me, I'm the announcer. If he came up to me and said, "Son, I need you for this test, this test, this test," yes, sir. Right? When do we need that done? I'll be at your office at 9 a.m. No problem.
Yeah, he's helped out. He's helped out a ton. So definitely he would be the MVP of the province. But there's so many guys. There's so many fighters. There's so many coaches. There's so many gyms. I miss everybody, man.
That's the thing. That's the hardest part of all
everybody.
this.
I miss everybody. Even the ones that are a fucking pain in the ass. And there's a ton of you out there. Some of you are pains in the asses, but
See, that's where you have the unfortunate part.
I miss you too. I miss them too.
I don't have to deal with any of the pain in the asses. That's unfortunately your burden there with you and Alex and Woody. You guys have to deal with that, and then Robin and I always get the good side of everybody.
You get to just show up, call the fight, go home.
That's right. Yeah,
That's the best job.
We're the guys that and whenever we want to talk to a fighter, they want to talk to us, and mainly because I got Robin. But they want to talk to us. They want to get their story out there. So they're nice as anything.
Yeah, because you guys can paint.
Nice.
You guys paint the picture.
Absolutely.
You can actually make a guy look bad even when he's not bad.
I've never done that intentionally.
Have you ever made a mistake?
Oh yeah.
How do you feel about them? You ever been called out by a fighter saying, "Oh, what the fuck did you do? You
Yeah.
said this."
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
Mike Karkula. When he fought Jesse Gross.
Okay.
So the video of that fight came out.
Yeah.
And I called it, and I admitted it right away when I watched it back. I was too critical of Mike. I pretty much said Mike was stalling the fight.
You see, I thought he was too, though.
You know what? When you watch it back,
I think he laid on Gross. I think he laid on him, and I think he just kind of rode it. Gross is one of those. He's a fucking specimen. He just keeps going.
Yeah.
Even when Karkula was on his back, I
Gross is
remember
punching
Gross.
backwards.
He just go. It doesn't matter if you're on his back. Some guys are trying to defend. Gross is still trying to punch you in the face. I don't think he won that fight. I don't think Karkula won that fight. I was surprised at the decision on that.
I was surprised with it at the time. I think the way it got judged was watching it back was dominant positions. And I've never said that I agreed with the judge's decision, but I definitely agreed that I was too hard on Karkula in the commentary.
So what did he do? He called you?
No, Top MMA News message board. And they put the fight up, and Mike, rightfully so, called me out on it. I saw it. I logged in, and I told Mike, you're right. I'm sorry, and totally fine. Like no problems. And that's, I think that's part of it. If you're an announcer and you make a mistake, just own up to it. The guys aren't going to hold a grudge against you.
Because it's a tough job. I called one fight with you one time.
It was fun too.
And was it It was Matty Havorka
Yeah.
versus Noah Croswell.
Yes. That's
Am I
the
right?
one. Yes.
So it was at the London Music Hall,
Yep.
and Hordecki was cornering Matty.
So
And
yeah, we had to
Hordecki
get him out. And get
so
somebody else.
we needed a commentator. So I actually go, I'll do it. So I sat beside him. I put the thing on, and I was just like, whoa. And then you were just like, oh, we got Matty Havorka. Like you just went in on roll on. Like you just, it was so, doing it beside you was so easy because you carried it. But it was definitely a game changer because I've never done that before.
It was so fun to have the promoter. I've never had that before, other than one time in pro wrestling.
Yeah.
When my buddy that promotes pro wrestling in Hamilton, All Ego Ethan Page. Shout out to All Ego Ethan Page, Impact World Tag Team Champion in the States.
Yeah.
My good buddy from Hamilton. He came up and did color with me for a few matches in one of the shows that he does. And it was awesome to have the promoter sit next to you. It was the same thing. Because then not only do, if you do your job well, you look good to the promoter.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of fun to get their perspective on what's going on.
Yeah. Because I think when I spoke on that fight, I knew both the fighters really well.
Yeah.
Like I knew it was Noah Nero's dad. Like I have like these small relationships with these. I have these relationships with these fighters. So all I was just saying, like, to talk, I was just talking. I don't even know what the hell I was supposed to do. All I just
You were
knew
great.
was I just had to talk about the fight.
Yeah.
And you just you carried me, which is great. It was cool.
But that's the thing. People make it so much more difficult than it is. It's not an easy job. But if you're focused and you have sort of a base understanding of what you need to do. So in your role as a color guy in that fight, your role is to tell me about the fighters that are in the cage. Tell me about the history that they have. Tell me about what you know about them. And I call the punches and the kicks and the submission attempts. But you were perfect because you did exactly that. You laid out who the fighters were, what's interesting about them, what's special about them, what you knew about them from their camps, how they trained for that fight. It was great.
Yeah, I was nervous as hell.
You wouldn't have noticed.
Yeah.
You really wouldn't have noticed. I remember that one. That was a lot of fun. But that's what it is. And that's why everybody says that, Robin is amazing. Well, he is, but that's what he does. Because he researches it, he knows what he's doing. He has relationships with everybody that he can bring that to every single fight. And of course, those shows at the London Music Hall, unbelievable venue. That was like walking into that theater above Madison Square Garden where they have the boxing.
Yeah.
Because there's lights, there's, it was so...
Yeah, Music Hall was a good venue too.
It was so awesome. And then when we're doing the amateurs, because so many adrenaline guys are on the card, I felt like an air traffic controller. Because if I've got Hordecki or Hominick or any of those guys sitting next to me, Stout, they've got a corner. So it's like, okay, he's in, he's out, where's he going? So I had guys like running in and out next to me all the time. I think I had one night where I had 4 different color commentators.
Yeah, we would do things on the fly.
It was great.
When it was amateur, which was cool. I like that. There was no pressure on the amateur side.
Oh, so much fun.
The pressure was gone, and you could do 16 fights, and you didn't have to worry about losing your shirt.
Yeah,
but it was a chance to see the guys transition to professional. And there were some guys that made the transition to pro too early because of you need an amateur base. If you don't, everything's going to dry up. You're going to get guys that are going to go pro way too early, and they're not going to get the results that they want. Look at Ronson, prime example. Extensive amateur career, but imagine if he didn't. Imagine if he had the opportunity to do amateur MMA.
Oh,
if you get a guy who does amateur MMA and he runs the same process, gets a fan base, gets people start to see him fight. I saw a lot of that with the amateur. Some of these amateur guys that they were getting a fan base. So by the time they turned pro, they already had a fan following, which is good for the promotion and the fighter. It just works. You need to be able to go. I throw a name on a billboard, and then people go, "Oh, I know this guy because I've seen him fight 10 times already." We had with the amateur circuit, we did 32 events in 1 year. That's a lot of fights. We were going. It was like every weekend. It felt like every weekend we were on the road going to Windsor, Chatham, Sarnia, London, Brantford, Cambridge, Toronto, Oshawa, Belleville, Ottawa, Kingston.
Because there were all those.
We were just going across the whole province.
All those satellite promotions that popped it. They saw you do it, and then all of a sudden you empowered a bunch of other people, and then it started.
But we helped them. We all helped each other. That was the best part. It wasn't. We didn't. No promotions were out to bury each other. We were all working together.
That's the key.
Because it was like, hey, you got this guy. Hey, can you help out with the matchmaking? Yeah. What do you need, man? Everybody worked together. That was the whole point. And then everything stopped on that end, and then the pro was the only way to go.
Yeah.
I just kind of wish I had the goal always was pro-am.
Yeah, which I think it should be simple to do. They do it out west.
Mm-hmm.
It should be simple to be able to do. And then it's genius. Your undercard's amateur, your main card's pro, and then you're developing your own next generation of fighters to step in to the main card. It just
100%
to me, it's got to happen at some point because it just makes too much sense to not have it happen. You know, it's what we need to go to.
Mm-hmm. In time, I'm sure. I think. Well, again, once everything kind of reopens back up and revisits things, I think the government leaned a lot on the PSOs right now for opening back up.
Yeah.
Which goes to show that they rely on the PSOs to make a lot of decisions on these things. So the government, they do see it, but again, the cogs of the government is slow. It's a long process.
Now, wasn't one of the issues with the amateur side as well that it wasn't necessarily going to fall under the same jurisdiction as the athletic commission?
No, what it was so we ticked all the right boxes, everything that the government wanted for athlete development modules, all the way up to getting to the Olympics was there's no MMA in the Olympics. This is kind of real short, but like you need that final outlet. So if you don't have an Olympic recognition, they're not going to let you be a PSO. But it doesn't exist. But there's international bodies that are lobbying and they're trying to get their foot in the door. And again, it's who's going to spend the most money. It always comes down to who spends the most.
The fact that MMA has not gotten a huge push for the Olympics or a bigger push for the Olympics drives me insane because wrestling is the base of MMA. Wrestling is an Olympic event.
Didn't they take wrestling out of the Olympics?
They have for, at a time, and that...
Which is ridiculous.
It's the original Olympic event.
Yeah.
Wrestling's out?
Yeah.
They invented the Olympics in Greece based off amateur wrestling.
Yeah.
That was the whole point of the Olympics. And it was the biggest event in the Olympics, the Summer Games at least, for I can't even tell you how long until kind of track and field took all the attention. But amateur wrestling was it. Amateur wrestling is the base of MMA, and boxing has been in the Olympics. Wrestling's been in the Olympics. Why couldn't you have MMA in the Olympics? It doesn't make sense.
It's just a brand new sport, though. That's the problem. You're talking go back to 93 when the first UFC came out.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's kind of been around, but it was. I get it still to this day. You know, when people ask you what you do and you tell them and they're not fight fans, they're like, oh.
Yes.
You know, they don't understand.
Yes. We
We get it because we understand. We understand, you know, everything behind, we've seen behind the scenes. People don't see that. They just think two guys fighting in a cage, it's a cockfight.
Two problems that kind of coincided to make the push difficult, and the state saw it when the UFC was really in its infancy, was that they started the whole idea with no rules.
Mm-hmm.
Well, a no-rules sporting event in the States was never going to work long-term because they have state athletic commissions that were going to get themselves involved in this. And you could have done it just strictly at casinos or done different deals. That was never going to work and get you to the next level. So because they didn't have the rules for the first while, or they were slow to implement rules, that allowed those politicians in the States specifically to make the ridiculous arguments against mixed martial arts. The problem was there was no effective way to fight it when the unified rules were invented, and they still came out and said, this is human cockfighting. No, it's not. It's a blend of, and the way that I have always talked to people when they say, well, I don't like that mixed martial art. It's too violent. And I say, do you like amateur wrestling? Well, yeah, it's an Olympic sport. Do you like boxing? Oh, I watched Tyson and Holyfield. Do you like kickboxing? Yeah, I used to see it on ESPN. MMA is just all of that put, very rudimentary look at it, but it's just all of that put together. And then people kind of go, well, yeah, okay. You know, you're not, some people, you're just not going to change their minds. That's fine. It's not for everybody. It doesn't have to be for everybody. But this idea that, wow, it was human cockfighting and da-da-da, it's ridiculous. That was made up by a bunch of people who didn't get it, who didn't want to get it, were never going to get it, and they just didn't fight effectively against it at that time. That's why it took so long for it to become the mainstream success that it was, and or that it is. And now you see it that it's got to take another step forward. The problem is at this point, I don't know how to get it to take that step forward to where you can get it in Olympic recognition and just take it to that next echelon of sports alongside MMA should be alongside football, hockey, baseball, soccer.
For sure. Not just under one, or not just UFC.
No,
because everyone is always UFC, UFC, UFC.
Yeah,
there's more to it than that. It's an outlet for a lot of people. It's a way of sport. The government is basically telling us we can't play baseball.
Yeah,
right. We're playing a sport. How can you tell us other way? If you're doing all your due diligence to make sure that guys aren't getting hurt, they're doing proper medicals, you're doing everything to return to play policies. If you're doing all those steps, what's the big deal? And that's where I got frustrated with the government, because it was like, hey, man, like, we're doing everything to make sure everybody is safe. We've painted the picture for you. You're going to stop us just on one thing and here's the thing, to get that recognition with an Olympic committee, you have to have that recognition from your government. So when I even said to the government, I'm like, okay, if you give me the PSO, we could get the recognition.
Yeah.
They're not going to let me get it unless I have it. And you're saying I can't get it unless that, you know what I mean? So
it's a chicken and an egg.
Yeah,
thing
you got to give it to me, and it's almost one of those give it to me, and then if I don't get it, then take it away from me.
Yeah,
that's what I want. And I even asked for that. If we don't get it, then take it from us.
That seems like a worthwhile gamble.
Yeah,
I mean,
everybody's nobody wants to take that risk, right?
Yeah,
they all pass the buck to each other.
Do you mind if I just ask, like, you being so in deep with the hockey community?
Yeah.
What's it like when you start talking about MMA? How does hockey, like the people who watch hockey, see MMA?
There's a massive crossover in fan bases, and I think a lot of it is because you look at the bases of the two sports, and you're talking about probably the two most high action sports that there is. Hockey, you're going around at such a high speed, crashing into one another, and that's saying it kind of rudimentary again, but because it's not just crashing into each other. There's an art form to checking. There's an art form to being able to do it all, and it's the same thing on the other side. That obviously mixed martial arts. It's in the name. These are all artists that just do it in a violent way, I think is the best way to describe it. And now what you're seeing is a cross training between the two. A lot of hockey players are training in boxing gyms, mixed martial arts gyms, because they want to learn how these guys do it, because mixed martial artists, pro boxers, they are some of the fittest athletes you're going to find. Hockey players want that. They want to be at that same level. And I mean, hockey players have always had the rep for being tough. They're going to gravitate to the guys who are in the toughest sport in mixed martial arts. So
when a fight breaks out on the ice, how do you get excited?
Oh, absolutely.
You calling it like it's a fight.
Absolutely. Call it like I'm calling. They got the gloves off. He's looking for the overhand right. Caught him, and he's down. I just have fun with it.
Yeah, that's super cool. Oh, yeah, it's too bad they didn't hockey fight and use elbows or knees. Like a knee would be cool. I think a knee in hockey would be cool in the chest, in the chest pad. You just pull them in, bam. Like, why couldn't they do that?
You got the blade, the skate blade.
Yeah, but if you pull your knee back underneath your butt and do a proper Muay Thai knee, you should be okay.
Theoretically, yes. Now,
because ultimately they're still fighting.
Well, yeah, but how many hockey players could actually throw a proper Muay Thai knee? Would be a topic for
But maybe some of these guys need to start. Maybe need to.
They just haven't tried it yet.
Maybe that's what we need to do. Maybe we need to start going after the hockey players and say, hey, listen, maybe you start throwing knees when next time you get in a fight. Maybe sweep the legs, kick the legs. You don't even have to touch skate to skate.
One of the biggest things in hockey fights has become the takedown.
Yeah.
At the end of the fight, who gets the takedown? Because whoever ends up on top at the end of the fight is generally the guy that's looked at as the guy who won. So
really?
Now you're seeing guys with technique dive in on a double at the end of a fight.
That's hilarious.
To get a guy down to the ice, or use like an inside trip to get a guy down to the ice. So there is a blending of styles. I mean, you talk about elbows, and I'm just picturing the old days in the late 80s and the early 90s when guys would shake their arm to get their elbow pad off.
Yeah.
Because then you have the greater range of motion to punch. And all I'm thinking is one of those guys getting that sharp elbow loose and Kenny Florian somewhere.
Yeah, can you imagine?
Oof.
I would watch it. See, I'm not a hockey fan. Like, I don't know, I've just never been. I like it live, but I never watched it in my house growing up.
Hockey and MMA are the two best sports to watch live.
Right, hockey, 100%. I was at a Leafs game years ago, and I was blown away. It looked like a choreographed event. It doesn't even look real.
The closer you get to the ice, the crazier it is.
These guys are all amazing.
Yeah.
They're all, like, you could tell. I didn't know they had TV timeouts. I didn't know any of that stuff until it was live. It was at Maple Leaf Gardens.
Oh,
so I got to see it at the
got
Gardens.
it in the historic.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. but I would actually 1,000% become a huge hockey fan if the fights were allowed to do that a little bit of extra, apart from grabbing the jersey and then they're throwing the uppercuts and a bunch of the punches. If they got more technical, if you could see the guy grab a guy in a clinch, throw a knee into the stomach, where they did everything. They didn't use their skates, but they actually like.
Because that has happened. Chris Simon stomped a guy with his skate once.
Really?
Yeah.
Like legit, like what? Like skate, like...
The guy was falling at his bench, and Simon stepped up and just hammered down. Suspended. It pretty much ended his career in the NHL. Mm-hmm. I think he got suspended for like 30 games. But it was 30 games. He could have come back in the same season if it hadn't been at the end of the year. That's the crazy part. Mm-hmm. But it's funny because you're talking about going one way with it, and people have been trying to get fighting out of hockey.
I know.
And that part, you know what?
That's why I'm wired this way. Right?
Look, I get the whole idea of we don't want injuries and you don't want guys fighting and getting hurt because of that. I didn't like the staged fights where you had two guys who would come on the ice and just kind of look at each other and go, "All right, we got to do this." Mm-hmm. That because it felt phony. There was no emotion to that. When you see two guys. Big check. Maybe it's legal, maybe it's not. Maybe it looked like an elbow was high. Maybe it looked like a headshot. And then the big guy on the other side, so for the Bruins, Zdeno Chara comes skating over, 6'9", and grabs a hold of a guy because he just hit Charlie McAvoy, his defense partner. Mm-hmm. He's down on the ice, and now I'm going to hurt you.
Yeah, I guess, because there's no weight classes. I mean, everybody, no. It would be... but usually the goons are the big guys anyways.
The goon has kind of been taken out of the league.
Really? This is how much I don't watch hockey.
There really isn't a goon anymore. The guys that are the best fighters, Ryan Reeves for the Vegas Golden Knights, probably the most dangerous fighter in the NHL because he has a lot of boxing experience, not like as a pro or an amateur, but training wise. Mm-hmm. He will flatten you if you try to drop the gloves on him, and he's built like a house. Mm-hmm. But he can play. He'll score you 10, 15 goals a year, and he'll beat up anybody that touches your star players. Those are the kind of guys you're getting now, mm-hmm. is the guys that play a regular shift, can play the game. They're essential to the team. But if you screw with one of their skill players or one of their smaller guys, they're going to hurt you. Mm-hmm. And I think that's been a positive turn for the game, is that even the tough guys now can really play. And because I've never had a problem with an emotional fight. You drop the gloves because something's happened and you need to get at a guy. That's part of the game. It's always been part of the game. Mm-hmm. I don't think you can legislate that out because hockey is a high-impact contact sport. Mm-hmm. You're always going to have the high emotions. But to have the goons, some of it was entertaining. Ty Domi was entertaining.
Yeah.
But I remember a time as a Bruins fan when they stunk, and they pretty much would have 4 goons. And it's like, great, we won 3 fights and lost 7-1. This is fun. Like... That gets old.
I guess, yeah. But see, as a fight fan, I always grew up. The hockey that I did watch as a kid, it was Bob Probert, Wendell Clark.
Yes.
It was always the guys that could throw down that I was drawn to, right?
It's funny because hockey's gone through a transition over time where if you go back to the 70s and the 80s, the guys who were the most feared fighters were also guys that were scoring 20 goals. Stan Jonathan with the Bruins.
Terry O'Reilly.
Yeah. Larry Robinson could drop the gloves. Pierre Bouchard could drop the gloves. And then you get into that next level where Wendell Clark, Bob Probert, Ty Domi, all these guys were still star players or at least could put you up a good amount of points and be the tough guy on the team. Then we went through this weird era where guys got into the league simply because they could fight, but they couldn't do anything else. And then right around the time of that lockout where they lost the whole season in 2004, you came out of that and all of a sudden the goon was gone. But the guy like Sean Thornton, who would get you 150 penalty minutes and 10 goals, that's now your tough guy. Mm-hmm. Well, he's going to play 12 minutes a night. He's going to be one of the most feared players in the league, and he's going to produce. Those are the kind of guys you want in the game that can do everything and fight. Those are the fun guys to watch. For the Bulldogs, we've got a kid right now named Navrin Mutter. Keep your eye on this kid because he is going to make the pros. He's like 6'3", 200 pounds.
What's his name?
Navrin Mutter.
Navrin sounds like a tough name.
Oh, yeah. From Lucan, Ontario.
Yeah.
And he is the best body checker I have seen since probably Scott Stevens.
No shit.
This kid throws a clean, hard check that just about knocks you out of your skates. Nobody in the league wants to drop the gloves with him. He's that tough. When he was a 16-year-old, he was beating up 20-year-old overagers.
Really?
He's that tough.
Yeah, that's cool.
He is a
I'd like to hear
beauty.
this story. It'd be cool if he makes it and we can go back and say, you called it.
Oh, I think somebody's going to take him because he's got the skill to play, but nobody's going to touch any of his teammates. He is the policeman. Nobody touches.
Do you watch the Knights at all? London Knights?
Oh, of course.
Yeah. Do you follow the OHL? I mean, I guess you would have to.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But are you just strictly Bulldogs?
No. In the role that I'm in, I'm lucky because it allows me the time to be able to follow all teams, to be able to have the research and the background on all the teams. When you talk about the London Knights, you're talking about the organization that every team in the league wants to be. Because year in, year out. So traditionally, junior hockey's been done on a cycle. You're competitive for a year, maybe two, and then you've got to rebuild. So the next 3 years, you kind of stink. And then you come back up, and the London Knights have crushed the cycle. They're competitive every single year. And they've done it because they draft well, they scout well, they develop well, they do everything well. One of the things that's really cool in Hamilton is we're chasing them. We're in different conferences. We only play each other twice a year, but organizationally, we've looked at what they do and how they develop.
Do they have a junior? Like they have a junior Knights here. Do they have that for Hamilton?
Yeah, we have the junior Bulldogs as well.
Gotcha. Okay.
So
that's the development module there.
That runs all the way through, and then you find players from outside your area and draft them, bring them in. Today was the import draft this morning, so teams drafting Europeans. The two best Europeans that got picked, Hamilton got one, London got the other one.
No shit.
So it's just it's that constant supply of bringing in talent, and at some point, because it's an hour and 20 minutes from the arena in Hamilton to the arena in London. How we're not in the same division,
that doesn't make any sense. That's weird.
We're in a division with, so our division mates are Oshawa, Kingston, Ottawa, and Peterborough. Why is Hamilton not in a division with London, Kitchener, and Guelph?
Yeah, they're thinking Golden Horseshoe, right? It's probably where they're looking at the Great Lake.
Well, we got to go even further.
We got different lakes, right?
We went to Ottawa. I guess we went to Ottawa in October. It took us 7 hours to get home because of construction on the 401.
Yeesh.
Like,
so you go away on the away games too?
Oh yeah, I'm on the bus.
No shit.
Oh yeah.
So what do you? How do you call the fights? Or the fights? How do you call the hockey game when you're away?
So I've got a case that I bring around with me, and it's got all my radio equipment in it. So it's like you take it on the road anywhere. It's like a mobile radio unit. I plug it in, set up my headset, connect to the internet, back to the station, boom.
No, I didn't know that. I thought you only called it when it was a home game.
Oh no, I used to. That was the TV side. The radio side, you're on the road with the team.
Really? So do you hang out with the players and everything?
More so the coaches and the staff.
Yeah.
The players. I mean, they're 16 to 20 years old.
Oh, gotcha.
I'm 32.
Yeah.
So I mean, the players they're all good kids. Like the Bulldogs have done a great job of creating a group that are really nice guys, and I have no problem being around them. I've gone to dinner with them where I've kind of been the adult that sort of takes them to dinner, which is great. They're all fantastic guys. But for me, it's a lot better to be around the coaches and the training staff and that, because it's more guys around our age that got the same experiences. And
you know what I like about hockey players? Before they show up to a game or press conferences and stuff like that, they all wear suits.
Yes.
I think that is such a cool. It teaches them to be like professional athletes. So they show up to press conference and they're all dressed in suits. They showing up to the games in suits. I don't remember if it was it was my wife's friend had a hockey game or something, and it wasn't even OHL. It was just like a regular hockey game, and all the kids showed up in suits. Yep. I was like, they all show up in suits, like all the time. Yeah, that's mandatory. The coaches, they bred it into them that they got to show up to the game, but they got to dress nice.
Yep.
Going to the game and going home. It's pretty cool.
And now the fun thing is you get guys who have competitions with each other to see who can
dress the best,
get the loudest outfits, which is great for me because then I start bringing those velvet jackets on the road.
Yeah.
And I'm right in there. I'm doing all right on that side. But yeah, they're pretty fantastic, I got to tell you. But it's awesome because we pull up to any arena in the league, and our guys, 20 some odd guys, walk off the bus. Every one of them dressed to the nines. They're in a suit. Some guys are wearing 3 pieces. Mm-hmm. They got the shoes shined. We look good when we get off the bus. And I think that over time, it's all about developing a culture. Mm-hmm. Look good, feel good, play good.
Yeah, because you see it in the young kids. It's cool.
Yeah.
And that's what I like about it. I'm surprised I'm not that big. I'm surprised I don't watch hockey. And part of it probably is I work a lot.
Yeah,
so,
that could
you know,
do it.
and
Yeah.
I don't watch TV.
Well, yeah, and
I never get to
especially
watch TV.
the hours that you work too. When
Mm-hmm.
are games on? 7:00.
Yeah, as I'm getting to work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Listen, we're gonna wrap this up. Thank you for coming on. Tell everybody where we can find you, where they can catch you commentating a game, and obviously whenever the fights are back, we'll be back to work, full steam ahead. But tell us all where we can find you.
So Twitter is at RC Duthie. Instagram is RC Duthie. Facebook, Reed Duthie. You can catch me doing Hamilton Bulldogs games on TSN 1150 and AM 900 CHML in Hamilton. We do both stations, so check our website for our schedule for which game is which once we get up and going this season. And you want to talk about mixed martial arts, you want to talk about hockey, get a hold of me on Twitter. I love chatting about sports, especially right now because it's about all I do.
Yeah,
so it's
Reed Duthie's the man. Ladies and
it's
gentlemen.
so much fun.
This guy, I love you, bro. Thank you so much. I appreciate you coming and making the journey. And we'll do it again.
Anytime, pal. Anytime. Love
You're
to
the
be
man.
back. This
You're
is
the man.
awesome.
Beautiful.